So this morning is our white stone ceremony. How many of you have not been part of a white stone ceremony? Okay. So, gosh, a lot of you. This is exciting. So I need 2 ushers, one for each side of the aisle, if I can, to pass out pencils and stones and cards. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Darlene. We're going to go ahead and pass them out now, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. The stones come from a quarry outside of Jerusalem. They're tumbled and put back together, but they've been quarried there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we're going to give you a legend, a little card, and pencils. And today is kind of a meditative service, and we will spend most of it in meditation. And I'll explain to you about the white stone ceremony. It's a very interesting thing that we have done for a lot of years at Unity, and people really love it. So can I help?
We're slow but sure.
I've got one, so you're good. I don't have a pencil, but it's coming. So while they're doing that, I want to just bring it to your attention a little bit. It's a tradition of going into a meditation and listening. Thank you, honey. And receiving a new name. And you have this name for a year, and it becomes your guide, it becomes your inner guide for that year. Everyone have a pen and, a pencil and a stone. So while they're finishing up, hold the stone in your hand and just feel it. Just feel. When I introduced it, I said it came from Jerusalem. It's from Bethlehem and Hebron, and it's an ancient quarry. And on the back of your card, you'll see where in Israel that it is. And they're hand cut and they are tumbled, and this will be yours to keep. In a nutshell, it tells you any name or word of inspiration that comes to you during the meditation will be written on your white stone, and it is to serve as a guidance for you throughout the following year. So you know that your consciousness is not the same this year as it was last year. You know you can't step in the same river twice. So who you were a year ago is different than who you are today. And so each year in January, to start the new year, we do this white stone ceremony, and it gives you a word, a quality, a name, could be a verb, but you'll get a name, you'll get a word. And once you're in this meditation and you begin to get this word, it won't let you go. You'll think, that doesn't make any sense, and you'll try to think of a different word. But whatever the right word is for you will come back to you and come back to you. And you may not remember it, but if it won't leave you, that's the one you need to write down. And invariably that word will make sense to you in a very short time. You just keep thinking about it and you'll get what it means to you. This actually was an ancient tradition in the Hebrew and the Jewish faith years and years ago, and you've heard them all if you've heard Bible stories. In the Old Testament, there's a story of Abram and Sarai. And God gave Abram a covenant, and Abram followed the covenant and obeyed, and God changed his name from Abram to Abraham. And his wife likewise followed the covenant given to her, and he changed her name from Sarai to Sarah. There were many other stories in the Old Testament, but those are probably the two that you would have been most familiar with. In the New Testament, you'll remember this person. His name was Saul. Saul made it his life's work to persecute and kill Christians. The story goes that Saul was on his way to Damascus to carry out his persecutions, and he was struck blind on the road. He was blind for 3 days. During the time of his blindness, he received guidance from God to turn from his murderous ways and become a follower of Jesus. I guess if that happened to you and I, and we were blind, we'd pretty much do what we were guided to do, don't you think? to get your sight again. But the story goes, he did have a complete change of heart, and for the rest of his life, he spread the stories of Jesus and was the crusader for converting all people to Christianity throughout the provinces of Greece and Rome. He later became the man credited with writing most of the books in the New Testament. You know these as the Pauline books. So his name was changed from Saul to Paul. Later on in the New Testament, as you read through it, there are references to white stones being given to prisoners when they were released from prison. These stones were given to the prisoners to keep in their pockets at all times to show that they had been set free and could no longer be punished for the crime which they had already been punished for. Metaphysically, that has a message for us. When we take on a new consciousness, we're set free of our old beliefs. The one this morning that we want to look at is the white stone reference in the book of Revelations in the Old Testament. In the New Testament. Revelations was not a book of doom. I think for most of our lives we were taught that Revelations was the end of the world and the end of the coming and the return of Jesus. But in truth, when it was properly translated, what we learned was it was a book of encouragement. And in fact was written by a man known as John the Encourager. And his writings became known as the Good News. In the Hebrew culture, they believed that certain people were messengers of God, bringing the word of truth. This author, John the Encourager, was believed to be one of those people that God revealed messages to. When anyone received the word, it was believed that that person would overcome all limiting beliefs and all limiting conditions. And the metaphysical of that for us, the meaning for us, is each time we let go of old limiting beliefs, we take on a new consciousness. If you let go of an old belief and it's not in your thinking anymore, You have created a new consciousness for yourself. John the Encourager was always speaking to them about a time of no oppression, a time of freedom from the harsh Roman rule. Now, Revelations was written in code, and it was passed along in letters to the Christians. And the reason it was written in code was because if people were caught with these messages that the Romans could understand and decipher, they were killed, because it was evident to the Romans they were Christians. And you were not allowed to live if you were a Christian. So they'd gone underground. So the book of Revelations and all that it offers is done in code. And rather than the literal of it looking like it's doom, it was actually good news. So when John was speaking to them about the time of no oppression, a time of freedom from harsh Roman rule, there is a passage that I would like to refer you to. It says, "He who has an ear," it's found in chapter 2, verse 17 of Revelations. "He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. To him who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna. I will give him a white stone with a new name." Have to decipher that, don't we? "Written on the stone, which will be revealed to no one except him who receives it." So let's take a look at the metaphysical meaning of that passage again. He's saying to the people, there's a spirit at work in your life, and when you connect with that spirit, you'll conquer all oppression and you'll be set free. They were looking for a time when they would be free of the harsh rule of the Romans. So metaphysically, let's unpack that passage. The first part says, "Anyone who has an ear to hear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches." That refers to meditation. Jesus told us over and over again to listen to the small, still voice, the inner voice that's always speaking to us. But most of the time, we have the mind chatter and we're not listening. So anyone who has the ear to hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. And the churches meant people who gather and are of like mind. So when they were talking to these people and giving them these letters in code, he was giving them to the Christians who all were of one like mind. Encouraging them to listen to their inner voice and not be worried about what was going on out here. The metaphysical meaning of the white stone with the new name is twofold. "I will give a white stone, and on the white stone will be written a new name." That referred to the prisoners who at that time in history were getting a new stone when they were set free from prison time, a prison term. And so again, that was metaphysical for all of you who are prisoners in oppression right now from the Roman rule. But if you do what you are guided to do, you will be given a stone with a new name. And on the white stone will be written that new name. Our old limiting thoughts keep us imprisoned, keeping us stuck in old beliefs and old actions that no longer serve us. So this is about moving in to a higher consciousness. When we're free from those old oppressive thoughts and behaviors, we live from new thoughts. We're free to hear the inner guidance for a new direction. When anyone received the word, it meant to embrace it, to receive the word. You know, I can hear something, or I can take it in. I can receive it. I can live it. I can accept it. It was believed that a person would be living from a higher consciousness, a higher good, with the ability to be known as John the Encourager. It had to be good news, right? When we are living from that higher good in our lives, when we are looking for and reaching for and living from our highest good, we have to overcome those old limited beliefs. You have to let them go. You have to let go of the old conditions that no longer serve us. We tend as humans to hang on, don't we? We don't like change. We don't want to let go. So we hang on and we hang on. And it's kind of scary to let go. And he's saying, no, let go. Those old limited conditions and beliefs don't serve us any longer. The Hebrew meaning of the word manna was from the Old Testament. And remember, in the Old Testament, when they were in the wilderness, they were only fed manna, and it came from heaven every day like rain, but it only lasted one day. So manna was the thing that they depended on daily to survive. Now what they've decided was that that manna was the daily spiritual food, because spiritual food, even bread, was called the bread of life. And so you see how they use the metaphysics to get their point across. It's hard for us because that's not how we speak in this logic of the language that we have learned. So manna is a realization that the divine substance is everywhere present in every part of our consciousness. It's our daily spiritual food, and it will sustain us if we partake of it every day. You know, we're taught the way to get through our day, our life, is daily meditation. And we use white because they used white as purity, victory, and joy. That's what the color white meant. In the passage where it says, to everyone who conquers, to conquer means to move beyond your ego. Our ego wants to drive our bus, but to conquer that, we have to move higher to a higher place, beyond our ego personality, to the spirit of who we are, to the spirit that really is our guide, that takes us to that highest place of good. Everybody who's willing to live from that inner spiritual guidance will triumph over whatever the oppression. And you've probably all experienced that. You've been through things that you felt were oppressing and wrong and not good and all of that. But when you move to a higher understanding, you know, I call it looking in your rearview mirror. You look back and you see there was some good that came from that. You begin then to learn that whatever we're willing to look at from a higher perspective or an inner spiritual guidance will allow us to triumph over all oppression. So this morning, you will be receiving in a meditation inner guidance. You will be hearing a new word that indicates your guidance for the year to come. You'll be given a name and a word that will guide you to the very ways to move forward to your highest consciousness as you go forward. Remember, when we ask, we will receive. So this morning, ask. You may even want to hold your stone and ask it what it came to reveal to you. You know, if we don't ask the guides, the angels, the higher self, whatever you want to call it, if you don't ask, it won't tell you. It won't interfere. But when we ask, we receive the information, the blessing. So we don't know what your word will be. Probably won't be a name like John or Mary. It will be an action. It will be a verb. It will be something that you are to pursue or to do. Someone asked me last week, so what were some of your white stone ceremony words? Because I've been doing this for the church in Houston for a lot of years. And I thought back, and one year my word was anticipation, which meant absolutely nothing to me when I got it that day. But as my year progressed, it was very clear what it meant for me for that year. The next year it was acceptance. It's a hard one for all of us to accept the things we can't change. The next year I got deeper trust. I've kept all my stones, so I had a little clue. Grateful was 1 year. And friendships, and I have to tell you about friendships. That was the one I got in 2017, in January of 2017. Now I have a lot of friendships because I lived my whole life in Houston, was in the church in Houston for 22 years, had a lot of friendships, and I thought, well, that's interesting. What is that going to mean for me this year? Well, what it meant was I ended up moving to Rockport, Texas, where I have really garnished a whole new batch of amazing, wonderful friends with good friendships. You touch my soul deeply, all of you. So by mid-2017, I figured out what friendships meant. So you may not get it today, but just keep pondering it. Just keep letting it sit there and see what it will bring you in the way of what it means for you to go through this year. And I told you those stories so you will realize that the word that comes and won't leave your mind today won't probably make any sense to you. It's okay. If it's the one that just keeps coming up, put it down and it will reveal itself. So we're going to, this is how our meditation will go. We'll release anything that no longer serves us. Open our hearts. When the word comes that won't leave you, you write it on your stone. Does everybody get a stone and a pencil and yes, if you didn't, please let me know. Mary, I saw you came in late. Did you get a stone, honey? Yes, good. Okay. Once you get that word and you put it on that stone, I recommend you look at it every day. I put mine by my computer so I can look at it. Because most of the time when I get it, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. I have to keep pondering it and looking for what it's come to teach me. And trust that and be grateful for that, even if it's a word you don't quite understand right now. So we will move into that meditation now and just be open. Make a commitment to yourself as we start, that you will commit to doing this. It was so interesting in Houston because all year long people would come up to me and tell me how their stone, what it meant to them and how it guided them through the year. So just invite yourself to be open to that as a possibility. Last year I got the word patience. Boy, do I know what that one was about. So just know that as this comes into your life, it comes in from your higher self. So as we prepare to begin, again, hold your stone in your hand and just feel it. See if it has any energy for you. And I would recommend that you say this to yourself. I choose freedom. I choose freedom. I start with a clean slate. This is my guide to my higher consciousness for 2020. So I would just invite you to take a deep breath. Breathe in. And remember, as you breathe in, that breath you breathe is the very spirit of life moving through you. Just breathe it in. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. And see that breath you breathe as this blue-white light of spirit as it moves in and through your body. Let go of whatever thought you have right now. Our thoughts take us to our past or our future. Be in this moment. This breath that you breathe reminds us that there is that spirit that we don't understand. We don't tell it to breathe, it breathes us. Keep in mind that in biblical times, the name was a very sacred thing. This is a very sacred moment. Just trust it. So continue to breathe in and relax and just be open. Just allow yourself to be open. Whatever it is you'd like to let go of, 2019, take this moment to release it. Just say, I release it, I let it go. Any old thought that keeps us from moving forward, just let it go. We hold in our bodies the energy of old hurts. We want to let that go. Let that energy go. It no longer serves you. Just as the Christians were held in bondage by their captors, so are we held in bondage by our past. by erroneous thinking. So we release and we let go of any old pain, any old hurts, any old anger or unforgiveness. Old judgments. We can't go back and change any of those experiences. We have to let them go. Let go of anything that no longer represents this moment, this consciousness of who you are becoming today. This white stone is a new slate. We want it to hold a new message. Just as the fear of the Romans held the Christians back and kept them in bondage, so will the fear of letting go of our old stories, our past experiences. Remind yourself that today you're a different person. Each day we learn, we grow, we have new understanding, new faith, more trust. And new guidance. That guidance is always with us. We just aren't always listening. So as I am speaking, you may be hearing a name, a thought, a word. Just notice it. The words that come and go, and there are words that will stick with you. Just be open to whatever that is. Could be a quality. Could be what you want to learn or need to learn this year. How you want to live. In those ancient days, the name was sacred. The child was always named for the essence that they saw in that child. So what is the essence of who you choose to be? be a state of being like faithful or trusting, quality like honesty or truth, or love or friend or joy. You'll know it. You'll recognize it. It won't leave you. This new name will come to you to be lived out, to be expressed, to be embodied as you. It will be what God is calling you to be or to do or to have. It is a whisper from your soul that you are so much more than you have ever let come into your expression. So much more. Trust it, whatever it is. And as you were guided, write that word on your stone. If a name comes to you that you don't quite understand, ask the divine for a deeper understanding. My higher self reveals my true essence. Our gift of life is to be joyous and peaceful, to have a life that's fulfilling. The scripture says, "Behold, I make all things new, for you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased." We have a God who says it is our good pleasure to give us the kingdom. That which created us wants only good for us. You have written your name your word. Feel the gratitude. Feel an anticipation of the new year. Know that it will continue to be revealed to you after today. Take your stone with you and put it where you see it all the time. Remember, God's gift to us is choice. We get to choose to have a more fulfilling life. We get to co-create our life with God in newer and greater ways. And as you anticipate this new year with new beginnings, you may slowly begin to bring your awareness back to the room. If you're not sure about your word, just continue to ponder it after the service. It'll reveal itself.